We're joined by USA Today's Washington Bureau Chief Susan Page. Susan, good morning.
Good morning.
Let's start with the nut job remark, if we could, something I never thought I'd say. But and what the president said to the Russians, saying, I faced great pressure because of Russia, that's taken off.
So first of all, if somebody's about to testify about what you said to him in private conversations, you might not want to insult him. And we now know that, that James Comey will be testifying before the Senate Intelligence Committee in open session after Memorial Day. The other problem with this, these quotes that are attributed to President Trump is that saying it's going to take it's going to provide him with some relief indicates that he thinks it was going to curtail the FBI investigation into his campaign's dealings, possible dealings with the Russians. And that does go, as Senator Leahy said, to questions of obstruction of justice.
And we should reiterate here, the White House is not disputing these remarks.
And it's interesting that that was their response to two explosive stories of just the last 24 hours. Not disputing the remarks, but trying to put a different pitch on them, trying to spin them in a different way.
Also, breaking news last night, Susan. The Washington Post says that federal law enforcement investigations have found possible ties between Russia and Trump associates, including a current White House official as a significant person of interest. How meaningful is that, and do we have any sense of who that might be?
I don't know who that person is, but you can tell that this gets very close to the president himself. It's not Paul Manafort, who worked for him, but only during the campaign and not with a long history. President Trump has tried to say he didn't have that close a relationship with Paul Manafort. This is, according to this report, someone who now works at the White House, who is a senior advisor to the president and who worked in the campaign. That is a pretty small universe of people, and that gets very close to the president himself.
So you have now a White House that feels like it's under siege and in a perpetual defensive position. How does it move out of this, or can it move out of this?
Think about the last 2 weeks. It was only 2 weeks ago that Sally Yates, the former acting attorney general, testified before the Senate Judiciary Committee with what was then seemed explosive. And we've had 2 weeks of one disclosure after another that creates very serious problems for this White House. And it means that I think this White House is going to be operating under the cloud of a Russia investigation for at least months, maybe for years.
Wait, there was some sense among at least House Republicans that the fact that Robert Mueller was taking over this investigation would keep much of it behind closed doors. The fact that James Comey will be testifying in a public hearing before the Senate Intelligence Committee seems meaningful for those who want to see some of this play out publicly.
You know, no one was more relieved than congressional Republicans by the appointment of Bob Mueller, because it meant that the whole issue of whether there should be some kind of independent investigation was settled. It meant they didn't have to keep answering that question and perhaps could move on to things like health care or a tax bill. But it is not good news for the White House, because it means there will be a very serious and continuing investigation. So what we know from special counsels is that they take a long time, and you can't tell where they end up going. It was an investigation into an Arkansas land deal that led to the impeachment of President Clinton on entirely different matters.
Yeah.
What's at stake for the president in this overseas trip?
Well, it's a chance to address questions about his competency and the competency of his staff. If he has a successful trip, he's given some big speeches. He's going to meet with foreign leaders for the first time in some of these at some of these summit meetings that Major was talking about. So that's a big opportunity for him to show that he is up to the job of president.
Susan, I ask you this coming from USA Today, as you do do international trips play as prominently as domestic politics? Can he change the narrative with a 9-day foreign trip?
You know, I think Americans care that their president is a respected figure on the foreign stage. But what they care about more is what's happening in their own lives. What they care about more is what's happening with the economy or with their health care. And in that way, some of the stories that are not getting this focus of attention on front pages are of more concern to Americans.
And indeed, the president has suggested he may want to end federal subsidies for the Obamacare exchanges, which would have a catastrophic effect for the marketplace.
And we'll know that Monday. They need to tell a U.S. appeals court on Monday whether they're going to continue an appeal process in a court case about paying these subsidies. And if the administration decides not to continue paying these, that means this whole insurance system may start to unravel. Big problems for the insurance companies that have been participating.
Susan Page with USA Today. Great to see you. Thanks, Susan.
Nice to see you. Thanks.